And what was the name of that website again?
repatriateToGhana.com.
Okay, got it. And so people can come to you through that website to try to start to relocate? How does it work?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. So we start people off with a free consultation, and then from there, people are interested, then we can do more in-depth one-on-one consultations with them, and also we can have,
Mm-hmm.
if they're interested, we also have packages available where we assist them with everything from, visa, and going from advice to actually taking them through the process themselves, assisting them with the process. There are
Mm-hmm.
different packages available, based on their level of commitment.
Okay. And so how long have you been at this?
For the site,
Yeah.
the site is relatively new, let's say around 4 months now, thereabout.
Okay. But I guess so. How long have you been kind of facilitating this move to Ghana?
Um, about 12 years, I have another site called Abibitumi, that's ABIBITUMI. And through that site, I teach the Chi language, which is the major indigenous language of Ghana. Um, and also there's a repatriation section on there. Basically, repatriation Ghana grew out of the pre-existing site because we realized that people, in addition to learning the language, were also in need of assistance dealing with land, dealing with housing, dealing with visa, residence permits, and things of that nature. So it's really a more recent outgrowth of, what started 12 years ago now.
12 years. Wow. Wow. And I'm wondering, so when people are coming to you deciding to make this big move, what is some of the reasons that they're bringing up? Why are they so eager to move to the continent?
Um, it varies. It varies. As a matter of fact, on Repatriation Ghana, we ask people, what their interests are. And, we get people who have both what in migration studies are referred to as pushes and pulls.
Mm-hmm.
So, some people are pulled because, they understand this is their ancestral homeland, because, they're interested in reconnecting with their culture, because they're married to Ghanaian. So you have any of those types of pulls to Ghana, but then you also have pushes away from places like the United States, the Caribbean, or UK, all these different places. And of course, one of the main things is, the high degree of racism, what some people refer to as white supremacy, what I refer to as white world terror domination, because they are not supreme. But, all of these types of issues of, police brutality, the fact that that nation was founded on the genocide of enslavement of other people, the fact that every single square inch that you walk on, that, that is stolen land that you're on, all these different types of factors. So the more people come to know and understand, the more repulsive, America becomes for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pushes and pulls, and those are just a few examples.
I see. And so my story, I'm Haitian American, and I've heard the same thing coming from a lot of Haitians that moved to this country. My parents are immigrants, and they're kind of like, fed up. And it makes sense. Everything you said is true. For my story, I'm really focusing on people that are leaving this country because they don't see themselves as Americans. They feel like they never will have a place in this country. And it seems like that's a lot of the people that you're working with too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for myself, like I said, I've always considered myself an African anti-American. And there's a quote from the late Nana Malcolm X, also has the name Omowale, where he says, if you're American, you wouldn't catch no hell. You don't get hit upside the head because you're a Mason or an elk or any of these groups that we call ourselves. It's, because one, the way he phrases, because you're a black man. Of course, compounded with that, the fact that they're white and they grew up what they did in every single place they ever set foot on the face of the planet. But that also reminds me that Haitian and, the entire world, specifically the black world, Haiti, an enormous debt, due to the revolution. Like, if not for that, but then just a year or two after defeating the British, though of course we know about the French and the Spanish, but after defeating the British, that was a major factor that caused them to abolish the quote-unquote slave trade before enslavement. The way they tell it is, we started to feel, pangs of remorse or, economic changes, but really what it was over 10,000 British getting killed, trying to establish enslavement there. And it was such a huge scandal at the time that they realized from a military perspective that every single boatload of Africans they brought to Haiti was a new enemy regiment that they were furnishing to the black people. So they decided the people who are already there and quote unquote thieves in there that are bringing more and more soldiers. So I just wanted to say that the entire, if not for that, right now, I would be in Africa worried about getting, enslaved and captured.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to be proud of.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. I'm wondering, so what's your background? You said you don't consider yourself African American, but where did you grow up in America, and kind of take me through what led you to believe that you have to leave, like this country isn't right for you?
Okay. I was born in Brooklyn and then raised in North Carolina.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I'm in New York, so.
Yeah, my parents actually met at Columbia.
Wow. What? Very cool.
And, coming out of the 60s and 70s, African people were at a very, I could say, higher level of consciousness in various ways. So, when my parents decided to get married, they didn't want to exchange wedding rings, blood diamonds and all those types of things. They said that they wanted to exchange African names that encapsulated the character of one another.
Right.
So my father's name, Kamal Rashidi Kamban, and my mother's name, Mawia Rahema. Kamal, silent warrior, Rashidi is friend, named Kamban, the spirit of the people. And then my mother, Mawia, the essence of life, Rahema, friend, and then Kamban, the spirit of the people. So when we were born also with African names, so I've never had any kind of white name or anything of that nature. And also my parents moved away from Brooklyn when I was 1 year old because my father grew up there. My mother was born in Harlem, but she grew up in Connecticut, right across the border in Stamford. And essentially, when you think about Brooklyn, his grandfather moved up to Brooklyn as part of the UNIA, Marcus Garvey back to Africa, where he became the chancellor of the UNIA and auditor general UNIA. So, this is, of course, multi-generational.
Yeah.
I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And what they decided was that, you can be in New York and listen to lectures where people say, yeah, we should do this for ourselves, we should do that. But as long as you're in New York, it's very difficult for you to actually do these things for yourself because you're always either paying rent or you have to go to the grocery store, you got to pay your light bill or water bill or social mortgage or whatever, car note. So what they decided to do is move down to North Carolina, which is where my mother's side of the family had been enslaved. So when you think Brooklyn, you can pretty much think the Caribbean. You think Harlem, you can think about somewhere in the South. In terms of the Great Migration when people moved up, and that's exactly the case for both sides of my family. So they decided to move to the South and build their own log cabin. These are city slickers, but they built their own log cabin with their own hands, with chainsaw,
oh my gosh,
hammer, and scratch.
Wow.
And they say we have to have our own water supply, we have to have our own food, so we had a garden and all these things growing up. We always cut wood, and my father's position was always that America is going to fall.
Right.
So, we have to prepare for when it does fall to not be dependent on America. So, that was essentially the type of upbringing that we had. We celebrated Kwanzaa and then Christmas for, white horror days, as we call it, HORROR,
Oh, okay.
and things of that nature. And, even at school, everybody's standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're sitting down. We're like, no, we don't do that.
Yeah, you were taking a knee before. Yeah, you were taking a knee before it even. Wow.
Right. People would start singing the national anthem. Like, nope. I remember one time I had a friend with a family took me to what was the Atlanta Braves baseball game. Everybody standing up. He was looking at me like, "Aren't you down?" I'm like, no. I'll look at the game with you, but I'll never, ever, ever do that.
You're like, I'm only here for the game. Yeah. Wow.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
So, but essentially, that was part of their move from North Carolina, and their plan was to move to the South, get used to living independent of, a lot of these white contractions that are designed to keep us enslaved. Malcolm X's father said that debt is the first step back into slavery. So, they made sure that we didn't have any of these, housing notes, farm notes, blah, 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 all these various things. And, basically, if America collapsed, that we would have everything that we needed. Everything was, we had non-electric everything.
Wow.
Appliances, we had, heated the entire house with a wood stove.
Yeah.
And all these types of things. So, and their plan was from the South to move to the Caribbean, which is my father's side, which is Davis and St. Kitts and Barbados, mainly St. Kitts and Barbados, but Nevis and St. Kitts between islands. My wife decided on Nevis. And then from there to move to the continent, they had this 3-stage plan. So me being here is essentially the culmination of what their original plan was. And, what I'm working to do now is assist them in repatriating because that's the goal of theirs. They had a bookstore in North Carolina called Black Magnificent Books and More, and they still have the building, even though, Amazon and Barnes & Noble, all these black bookstores out of business. But, in this day, we had all of the major African intellectuals, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, we had Dr. Khalid Muhammad, Dr. Anthony Browder, Dr. Charles Smith. So all these people who are, very, very well known in the quote-unquote fascist community for their work dealing with Africa, Africana studies. But, eventually that went under. So where they are now, still trying to fill that building, and then what they do, they want to repatriate. So I'm on this side. I was with them in purchasing 4 plots of land, immediately adjoining my own. And for me, I was installed as a traditional ruler in the same place where I have land. So the plan is for them to come, for all of us to be building together.
Yeah.
And just be done.
Yeah. Wow. No, that background is so helpful to understand what your work means now. So you're essentially just trying to get people that want to make this step. And I guess I'm wondering, because you're right, there's the history behind it is so important. And I'm wondering how many people, do you think that there's almost this new wave of people interested in moving to Ghana specifically? Because right now, my research has shown that there are about 3,000 so-called African Americans living in Ghana right now, the capital. But have you noticed through your work that more people are trying to sign up to relocate?
Yeah, it's sort of like the inverse of when Obama was elected. So, with Trump and really you see this over and over again in cycles. If you're familiar with the history of that country, so back in the late 80s, early 90s, the late Amos Wilson, he talked about how, people at that time were saying, we have black mayors and Marion Barry and and young, and so forth and so on. This is a new day. We're trying to check, so on. And he was like, people who are saying this are really not familiar with history because people were saying the same thing during so-called Reconstruction after the Civil War.
Yeah.
Where you had, black governors, black senators. You had P.B.S. Pinchback and Hiram R. Rebels. Then you had all these, people, congressmen elected, so forth and so on, mayors, things of that nature. But of course, after the Hayes-Tilden Compromise, that was 1877, I believe. All the military protection left as part of that compromise, and then it was this reign of terror where there were all these lynchings, quote unquote, Red Summer, all the things that we're very familiar with. That's documented in books like Without Sanctuary, things like that, where, and then beyond that, you have the 13th Amendment. There was actually a recent documentary about that, and I watched the same thing. That is very clear that slavery has never ended in the wording. And immediately after that, you had convict leasing, where anytime it's time to pick cotton, there's magically a crime wave. Let's go arrest all the black people, get them to pick cotton for free, and then then after that, war rain swamps. So when we think about our lay railroad tracks, so all of the building of the nation that wasn't accomplished through enslavement was very largely accomplished by post-enslavement. And there's this interview from a guy at Parchman Farm. I want to say, he said, this is even better than slavery because in slavery you have to take care of them even in the winter when they're not working. With this one, you arrest them, work them to death, and then you just go arrest another one. So this is like slavery without any of the burdens, quote unquote. So, they were very clear. They went to convict leasing and then for sharecropping to now privatized prisons. And all these major U.S. companies use this privatized prison labor, including Dell, HP, Compaq, Boeing. The list goes on and on. So even when I'm buying a computer or anything, I make sure I actually go through that list and make sure that I don't, financially support my white enemies.
Yeah, wow.
Because once you know better, you're supposed to do better, right? So.
Yeah. Wow. No, and so you're saying that, of course, this has happened in waves. We can trace it back from when people were stolen and brought to the shores of this country, but there is almost a new wrinkle in it, a new rendition of it right now. Okay.
Because, with Trump.
With Trump.
And let me actually just close that, bring it full circle. So, essentially what you see is that anytime you have black representation in the political sphere, you have this white pushback, from there. So whether it's during Reconstruction, and now you have these lynchings, whether it's, in the 80s, you have black mayors and senators and Congress people, and then you have this white backlash in the form of, the first Bush, well, even, before that, you can look at Ronald Reagan, Bush. Actually, we can list every single president. If I start isolating one out, like one is working.
No, they all worked into each other.
Yeah, they're all doing the same thing. And then you have Obama, who was, invaded Africa, bombed Africa, so forth and so on. But even just the fact that he was, and I really look at his election as how unpopular George W. Bush was. And you had, people like Hugo Chavez speaking against him. So the whole world had, this very ugly face of the U.S. So just like on the plantation, when they want to get things through, they'll give you a black overseer. And there's a quote that says, when the axe entered the forest, one of the trees said, look, the handle is one of us. I'll come again. When the axe entered the forest, one of the trees said, look, the handle is one of us. So they give us a black face that, isn't there to serve our interests, but is rather there to chop down more trees, even though the handle is made out of wood. And So, but even just the fact that there's a space, there are all these statistics about how many white people bought guns, at that time, and so forth and so on. But now Trump is essentially this exact same white backlash that we saw before. So now you see it in Charlottesville. You see it in the everyday police shooting. And so forth and so on. So the list goes on. So, I think about it in terms of my ancestors who were enslaved, that none of them, and they were very clear. So in the 1800s, you had African, lodge of this, you had African Methodist Episcopal, like all these different things that they call themselves were African, right? Whatever the thing that they're doing, they're African, not American this or American that. And I really see the use of the term African American as a name. It tells you a particular type of American, right? So in there, the head noun comes second, and then the first one is the adjective to describe that noun. So it's like a red American, a blue American, here's an African American. So what that does is it keeps us in the shadow of our enemy by making us identify with our enemy. So once you think you're a type of American, then the question comes, okay, well, what does an American do? Okay, he joins the army. He does that, does that. And all the things that are inconsistent with what our ancestors were actually trying to do, especially when you look at Africans like Nat Turner. So, he wanted to eventually get to the capital. He was there in Virginia. And if you look at Gabriel Prosser, all these ancestors, grandancestors, also there in Virginia who had the plan of, all right, let's take over the capital. And, the list goes on and on.
Wow. Right. Okay, yeah, that's helpful. That's really, really helpful. I'm wondering, so back to your process of how you help people eventually relocate. I'm wondering because I know Ghana has the new, or it's not new, but they have the right to abode program and they also have the easy visa process. So I'm wondering, as far as your input, how easy is this process for someone to eventually move permanently?
Yeah, this is very interesting that you asked me. Now, there are some, even those of us who have already repatriated, who are a bit skeptical, and I'll tell you why. Just about a week and a half ago, we had a meeting with Mr. Ababio, Abio, who is associated with the President's Office. The Diaspora Affairs Office is there under the presidency right now. And, there was a meeting where all of us were interested in talking about citizenship. And instead of dealing with citizenship, they kept talking about, well, this is how to extend your visa. If you come on a tourist visa, this is how to extend it beyond 60 days. And it's how to get your this permit and that permit and so forth. And basically, a lot of us, and I already have citizenship, so I got it in 2016 as part of the 34. And even in that process, I played.
Wow, you were one of the 34?
Yeah. So even in that process, I played a central role. The main role was Dr. Maulana, Maulana. But my role was here at African Studies. People brought their application forms to my office, and all of the discussions that led up to it were through the Institute of African Studies. We had these meetings, these monthly meetings where we discussed things. And eventually the executive secretary to the president came to one of our meetings at African Studies, and that's what really happened. But it was Dr. Maulana, an elder in the community. It was his contact that made that happen. But so I was one of the 34, so I got my citizenship. Matter of fact, I just traveled to Kenya and Cote d'Ivoire on my Ghanaian passport, which is my first time traveling on that. And my U.S. passport is expired. I don't plan to ever renew that. And once I get the money up, I also plan on renouncing U.S. citizenship. I want to do it before I get into my 90s. Du Bois did it, but he waited until he was like in his late 90s.
Wait, can I ask how old you are? Sorry to interrupt.
39.
39?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, you're very young. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, comparatively to some.
Comparatively. So you, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was part of that 34, and as we were there, basically they're telling us, my analogy was like, it feels like we're in a circus and they're training us to hop through hoops right? And but essentially, some of us, including myself, I got up and I started speaking P and then translating it after that into English. So I wanted to, just for the effect of, some of us speak the language, some of us already have citizenship. Right. But regardless of any of those things, we're not here for that. And I gave the analogy of when you go to the dungeon, where our ancestors were enslaved, that, you have to pay a fee to enter. And they charge, Ghanaians one price, and then they charge, quote unquote, foreigners another price. And, that is so unjust for various reasons. But the main thing is that here I am, and the descendant of one who was enslaved has to pay the exact same thing as this British guy standing beside me who did the enslavement, right? Whose predecessors did the enslavement, and who is flying on the blood money of my ancestors and is paying for it with the blood. And it's like, that's so fundamentally, unjust. Right. And so I was just giving that as an analogy. So I'm like, so now if it comes to citizenship, what all of you are saying is that, after 8 years, you're giving us the same process that a Lebanese guy would go through, or that a British woman would go through, or that a German or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, how does that make sense to you? Now, Mr. Abel, he spoke to it, but he didn't get that. What I was saying was just an analogy. Because he started talking about, this is what happens at the dungeons, and he started going into why it goes on. And he basically said, there is basically just a cash grab, where, if they can charge foreigners a higher price, then, they can get the money to do blah, blah, blah. God's under orders, and he just is there to collect the money for the people. And I was like, that is a perfect, I'm very glad you didn't understand that that's just an analogy. But that's the same reason why these immigration people are there, to tell us how this 8-year process is going to go. And after this, then you can do this. And then after that, you can get the residence permit for however many $100s. And after that, you can get the right to a vote for however many. So basically, it's the same thing. The same way that at the dungeon, it's a cash grab. That's the same thing of this long, drawn-out, monotonous process. Yeah. And the point that I made, and I think, other people as well were feeling the same thing, was that we're a historically unique group. Yeah. And we shouldn't be lumped in with the British. We shouldn't be lumped in with the French. We shouldn't be lumped in with whoever comes here and says they want citizenship. Right. Because our ancestors didn't volunteer. Our ancestors were kidnapped. Yeah, it's not immigration. Right. Nobody volunteered and said, let me hop on board that thing. Yeah. Yeah. And even on the continent, they have this narrative of, we sold this, we sold that. This is kidnapping. Nobody voluntarily went. This is kidnapping, and it needs to be understood as such. Right. So being a historically unique group, when we come back, we shouldn't be subjected to the circus, which is hop through this hoop, hop through this flaming hoop, hop through this, and everybody claps. Yeah, I thought so. So the right to a boat program, it's not necessarily a guarantee of citizenship, is what you're saying. It's more so you can. There's an easy visa process, but not necessarily when you get here, you're going to be able to officially become. Exactly. Okay, exactly. I see. And some may hop through enough hoops that they eventually get through it, but look at how many hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and how many years that they've had to spend their time in order to finally get this carrot at the end of the stick. I see. And essentially that seems like, in my view, the whole point was just to drag things out, get more money. And then if you happen to be persistent and you get citizenship, fine. But if not, we got all the money, so go home. Right. That type of deal. Yeah. Whereas for myself and the others who got citizenship, it was on the behest of the president, direct order of the president, where he was actually their president. You can see the video of myself and others getting our citizenship restored, and that's how he phrased it. He said, I'm not giving you anything. I'm restoring what is your national birthright, your possession already. I see. So, yeah, just saying all that to say, some of us are as skeptical of, the government here as we are of the government there in Whiteville, like what I call the U.S. Because, essentially at the end of the day, you have just exactly what I'm saying. You have this kind of cash grab type of thing, because if it's about citizenship, when we come and we, put in our petition, and none of us are here begging. You'll never see an African anti-American such as myself. I have a PhD that I got at the University of Ghana, where I had to pay in dollars, in order to do that. None of us are on the side of the street begging. None of us are drained on the system and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And everybody's coming, if not with their pension and Social Security check, they are, productive and young and bringing their families. So, even as we're sitting in this meeting that I'm telling you about, I'm like, some of us are paying y'all's children's school fees, right? Some of us have paid for, the fuel you're putting in your car to even get here. But it's really not appreciated. So what we often see is that on the continent, they view the diaspora as an ATM. But then when it comes to reciprocity of what do we get out of the process, we don't have a problem bringing our skills, our resources in various ways.
Wow.
But at the end of the day, what do we get out of it is the citizenship. And what we often hear is the Liberia scapegoat, right? This red herring, which is, when the Africans of the diaspora came to Liberia, they thought that they were better than the continental Africans, and that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And, what we have to put in perspective is that there were no Africans of the diaspora in Rwanda in the genocide. There were no Africans of the diaspora in Central African Republic in this ongoing genocide between so-called Christians and Muslims. There was no, Africans of the diaspora in South Africa, where it has xenophobia, where they were killing people from Nigeria and Zimbabwe and everywhere else. There was no, Africans of the diaspora in Boko Haram, northern Nigeria, or in Mali, where, you had this, Maghreb or whatever, what is this? ISIS-associated group coming in and, killing, ransacking. There was no African, and I can, list out 100 examples on the continent of black-on-black violence in service of white domination, because any place where you have these, genocide or any killings or all this unrest, that these are places where there are resources. So if you look at northern Mali, where this is going on, right across the border is, nuclear resources that France depends upon, right? If you look at eastern Congo, and that's, related to the Rwanda genocide, that right there is where the coltan comes from for the phones and for the laptops and for everything that we use, that they're able to get it out without, government regulation. So essentially, I'll give you an AK-47, you give me $1 million worth of coltan, right? And, the same thing in Liberia, Sierra Leone, blood diamonds. That's what it's all about. So De Beers, there's a good short documentary called The Diamond Life by Guerrilla News Network, where they actually go into the funding that comes from these huge diamond cartels for these rebel groups. Wow. So it's not about, somebody from the diaspora came and thought they were better. If you go to any country in Africa, you have people who, minority groups in that country say, those people think they're better. So in Ghana, everybody says the Asante people are arrogant and they think they're better than everyone. If you go to Senegal, the Wolof speakers, everybody learns Wolof. The Wolof people don't learn anybody's language. That is the case anywhere you go, but this now becomes a huge scapegoat.
I see what you're saying.
In order to, you understand, in order to not have reciprocity, we're just going to keep pointing at Liberia and saying that's something different. What that is the exact same thing as everything else.
Everyone has that dynamic, right?
Say again?
No, you're saying everyone has that type of dynamic. It's not necessarily just because African Americans are coming. Okay.
What that is, to put in perspective, is that continued black-on-black violence in service of white domination. Because from that, they laugh all the way to the bank as we're killing each other and at each other's throats. Because just like during enslavement, we didn't realize that we have a common white enemy. Which is what they were very clear on at the Berlin Conference. They had trading partners here in Africa. They had, protectorates. They had all these things. But guess what? At the Berlin Conference, they invited these black people who thought this is my trading partner. They said nope. We're inviting Russia. We're inviting the U.S. We're inviting Belgium. We're, going to be in Germany. We're inviting Portugal. We're inviting Italy. We're inviting all these white folks. Because it's a pan-white conference. So they were very clear on who they were and what that meant with regards to black people, but we weren't very clear on who they were. So, essentially, the analogy I give is picture someone who's getting punched in the jaw, but their right hand is saying, well, because they haven't hit my right hand directly, I'm not going to do anything about it. Yeah. You understand? So it's attacking the black soul, the entire black body, but it's essentially a piecemeal approach to defense. So, now it finally hits the right hand, and then the left hand is saying, well, I'm not in it.
Yeah.
Or you didn't step on my toe, I'm not going to kick you. If you saw somebody do that, you would say you are in pain. You would put that, after they got beat up, you put them in the loony bin and say you're a hazard to yourself. Oh my God. But essentially, this is the way that we operate as black people. So we look at the Liberia situation as separate from the Congo situation, as separate from the Niger and Mali situation, as separate from the Boko Haram situation, as separate from the southeastern Nigeria over oil situation. When all of these are black people killing each other so that whites are able to extract the resources and last all the way to the bank.
Wow. No, thank you. That helps inform kind of that. So that's creating a lot of hesitation for Ghana administrators in Ghana to fully accept American or black people coming from America to fully integrate within the system. So I feel like I
understand. Real quick, are you recording?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to clear that you were, but that's fine.
Okay, well, yeah. Sorry.
I hope I can get a copy.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to ask. So, thank you so much again. You have no idea. All of this information is so rich. So my article is going to be a very long piece, right? This is like, you were recently in an article that was a little bit shorter, but this is going to be a probably 4,000 word story about this because I really want to get into the history. So I'm wondering if you have anyone that you've been working, because from what I've found, people that are making this big transition are excited about it. They want to tell someone about the story. People that I've spoken to that have already left want me to write about them. It's a big deal. So I'm wondering if you have anyone that you're working with right now that hasn't necessarily moved, but they're in the process of moving. That also lives in New York, so there's that too, because I'm based in New York. That would be willing to kind of talk to me about their own personal story, because you're kind of the gatekeeper, you're the overseer. So I'm wondering if there's someone that's in the weeds of this process that's going to be willing to talk to me, so I could potentially follow them through the process and kind of see them leave the country eventually.
Okay, yeah. So through Repatriate to Ghana, and I would actually have to contact the person and see if they're open to being part of the story.
Yeah.
So through Repatriate to Ghana, we have various people who, we have, of course, their information, why they're interested in their background. So we have a few folks out of New York actually have thought of the form of somebody out of New York. Yeah. But again, I would need to contact that person and, make sure that was cool because, these are practical issues.
Right. That would be absolutely perfect because I think this is an issue that, not an issue, but a process and a movement that people really don't understand. And I think hearing from you, hearing from someone that's going through the process will really help inform the story. So yes, please let them know that it would be going to good use if they lent their story.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
You say your name is Brianna?
Yes, Brianna Millord. And I can send you my information. Do you have an email that you use a lot that I can send more information to?
Yeah, you can use, what's the best? Me, at obadalekanban.com. So
okay.
My first and last name.com.
Gotcha.
And actually my bio was on there as well, so we just kind of, touched on some of the main points.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you go to that site, obadalekanban.com, and, the bio is there.
Okay, I'll read through it. Your story is very, very interesting. I'm just I can't believe it. You really embody just this whole country, just knowing that there's more out there than being in America. Like this isn't it for the black diaspora. So I
Yeah,
will,
and I would say
yeah,
people in America in general tend to have that type of view that okay, America's the best in the world, and if not any place else, it's at least better than any place else, right?
right.
And these are people who, of course, who never travel and never see anything
Yeah,
else. So
yeah,
when they're getting followed around in the store, then it's just like, oh well, that just comes with the territory. But at least it's better than everywhere else.
right.
When they're getting stopped, by the police and getting beat upside the head and all these types of things,
Yeah,
it's just like, well, it's still better than everywhere else. But then when you go someplace else and you're walking through a store, nobody's chasing you down or walking behind you like, oh,
mm-hmm.
hurry up and buy. They're about to steal something.
Yeah,
That's when you really start to feel like this is a different situation.
right.
When a police car is behind you and your heart doesn't skip a beat, then you start to feel like, wow, that's never happened before. And you start to
Yeah,
feel a lot
yeah.
more free than you've ever felt. And I had one time, I remember I was in the botanical garden holding my son who was sleeping in my arms. And
Mm,
it just changed me that I don't have to worry about him getting shot for playing with a toy gun,
mm,
like Tamir Wright, right?
yeah, yeah,
And that's something that you can't pay for in
yeah.
terms of billions and billions. And then the other side of it is
Mm,
several people have said this, not a Malcolm X who I've quoted several times,
mm,
but essentially that no black person anywhere on earth will be respected until Africa is a world power, superpower,
yeah.
essentially. And this is what we see because if you see, a so-called Jew, people don't just see that one guy. They see the state of Israel behind him. If you see a Chinese guy, you don't just see that one guy.
Right.
When the police stops him and pulls him out of the car, they see, China with nuclear weapons behind him. Like this is a representative of powerful people, and I have to treat this person in a particular way. So
Yeah.
with black people, it's like, all right, if we beat you and kill you or anything, what are you going to do other than get some placards that you're going to buy at Home Depot and get some markers that you're going to buy at Walmart,
Mm-hmm.
and then all these places and you're going to get some shoes to march that you got at the mall from Nike or Adidas,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be at the Hilton Hotel. It's like even your protests do nothing but finance your enemy.
Wow.
They're going to take that same money to buy bullets and build prisons and all the things that we complain about.
Yeah.
Because as long as we are close to this white enemy and we're financing this white enemy, they're going to flip that in order to continue to fund our genocide.
Mm. Yeah, no one really thinks about it like that. Even the act of protesting is so deeply embedded in capitalism that funds a lot of the white supremacy that we're trying to fight against. So that's a very interesting point. Wow. Thank you so much again. I'm excited. Hopefully, I can, keep in contact with you. And then again, you let me know if anyone. So the timeline is up until December. I'm looking for people to be able to talk to. So just let me know again if anyone would be willing. And then again, hopefully we can continue this dialogue.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Have a great rest of your afternoon. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
All right, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.